ladies, and welcome to another edition of A Little Perspective. This is the special delivery edition. Today I am talking to Allison and Chris Griffin, and they are two parents who have written a chapter for the book, A Little Perspective, Special Delivery from Pregnancy to Toddlerhood. And they are parents of Jackson, who is a child with dwarfism, and they have written a little bit about their journey. And today we're going to talk about some of the things that they've been through and their experiences writing. So thank you both so much for being here with me. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourselves?
Sure. You want to go ahead?
No, you go.
Okay. Yeah, we're Chris and Allison Griffin, and our son is Jackson. He's 5 years old, and he was born with dystrophic dysplasia, which is one of the many forms of dwarfism, and fairly rare form. Yeah. Somewhere between 1 in 200,000 and 1 in 500,000 is what is known to be the occurrence of that. And I don't know, I guess we don't have any family history that we know of. And so
just short,
people, not tall family members. And so it definitely came as a huge shock, I guess might be a little bit of an understatement, but that I don't know. I guess that's it. We live outside of Washington, D.C. and that's been, I think, a good part of our journey because we've been fortunate to have access to specialists, and as part of our kind of our story and the diagnosis and finding out what exactly he was. We had all this kind of like nebulous conversation about dwarfism, which we had heard of, and were immediately said, oh yeah, we know little people, big world, of course, right? And but having the ability to have some access to testing and other things that as we've gone through this last 5 years, discovered other families' situations are drastically different depending on the medical expertise and resources they have access to.
Yeah. And that's a really valid point. Nemours is in that area up there towards you, and then there's some others scattered throughout the country. But if you are, living on a budget and you don't have, really great insurance, then it can be hard for some of the families to get to those places. And so it is a blessing to be able to access that. So there's some really great medical care, but then because dwarfism in and of itself is rare, and then having a rare form of dwarfism makes it even all the more complicated. At what point was Jackson diagnosed? Because I'm not familiar with your diagnosis story. Was it
20 weeks?
Okay. Yeah, it was about it was at the 20-week anatomy scan, and that kind of
we had gone to a high risk, what is it, maternal fetal medicine, whatever, and they did the ultrasound and the measurements and stuff like that, and she was picking up on it. I was just sitting there not really paying attention to the numbers. And
I had
then all of a sudden the tech was done and said, I'll be right back, and left to get the doctor.
And it was like 45 minutes. We were sitting there with no one came to talk to us. And
she's starting to get worried, and I'm still in the dark.
Yeah.
I had been watching, the overhead screen. They're showing you all the images, and I'm just like an information details person. And I was watching, and there's you see the measurement in the corner says how many, where you are gestational age based on the information they've entered, and then the measurements are coming up. It was 20 weeks and 3 days, and it was saying things like 16 weeks and 2 days, and I was like, that doesn't seem
all
right.
The long bones were measuring shorter by 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So I just it was like I had this, and then sitting there for forever. We're both he's on his phone. I think I probably was on my phone trying to channel the peace of mind. everything's gonna be fine. It's not that there's something's wrong on there. Wrong on their end. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of the story that we've started to, like to share is about how we went from that. I mean, similar, I think, probably to how everyone starts talking about their story, how we went from that moment of like dread and like grieving of like, how can this be happening to us? Like, what did we do to deserve this? To, where we are now, 5 years later, knowing, what a blessing it is. And, just the best thing that could have happened to us, and the way it unfolded has been in and of itself a blessing. The people we've met and the person he is, and all of, everything that's come between, the beginning and not the end, but the now.
Yeah. What made you guys decide to say yes and to be a part of this book project?
I mean, I know
I was on the original Zoom call when you were trying to get interest, and I felt it was something that we just had a story that we wanted to tell. Or, I mean, she was, I think, at work, and I was at home.
I was listening, but I was like, I knew I'm a joiner, so I was like, that sounds great. Like, just tell me what to do.
She joins everything that you ask her to do.
I don't say no very easily.
I'm more skeptical on a lot of things, but I felt like we had a story we wanted to tell, and this is a great opportunity to do that.
And I think in the folks that we've come in contact with and met through, where being part of the LP community has taken us, we knew that there's all kinds of different avenues for sharing and advocacy. And, we have a small enough network of friends, family, people we've known through jobs and interests, and social media, has opened that up to us to be able to share just what normal, anyone's sharing about their kids, and with the added layer of, however people view that, knowing Jackson's, his situation and his disability. And, we've thought from time to time again, like, maybe he'll have, he says now too, maybe I'll do a YouTube channel, Mom. I'm going to make a YouTube video tonight. We like laugh that off. And, we actually found some of the best first support through a blog. I just was Googling and found a mom's blog, and we connected days after that first appointment. And so there's, books and all kinds, what you're doing with, podcasts and interviews and putting this book together. So when the opportunity was,
but the thing is, though, everybody's experience is different.
Yeah.
Even if, we've met several families with kids with dystrophic dysplasia, and everybody's even within dystrophic dysplasia is different. So, it's one person with dystrophic dysplasia has a completely different story than somebody else. So it's something that we felt we wanted to, and, he's an incredible little kid.
Yeah.
And, we want to let as many people know about that.
And I think too, I think if people have gone through significant medical challenges or had, traumatic stories of, birth story or, diagnosis, we've had a pretty average, typical, I mean, surgery wise, worldwide interaction. And so I think we felt a little like it was unremarkable, like we didn't have anything significant, not that we didn't have anything significant, but like where could we fit into that?
Yeah. No, I think that's all really great information and valid, super valid. Chris, how did you feel when, because you kind of didn't realize what was going on. So how did you feel once the doctor kind of said like, hey, this is the situation?
She cried. I was really mad, and not mad because of the diagnosis. I was mad at the doctor because of what he said next. We had 10 seconds to process this, and he said, have you thought about terminating the pregnancy? And that really, because it took us a long time to get pregnant. She went through fertility treatments, Clomid injections, and then we did IUI, and that took the first time. So it was a multi-year process, and we hadn't even had a chance to digest what the diagnosis of what he had just told us, and I was already asking. I mean, I know they have an obligation because there's a certain time limit to be able to handle that kind of thing.
Sure.
But it could have been done a lot better.
Yeah. I have found that's a very common thread in these stories. It's not only that, like, it is offensive to have to kind of be hit with the news and then that as an offer, but just the way that it's delivered, it's like they're not trained on how to like deliver these things better, because it's very common, it feels like.
Yeah, I think that from what we've heard from other folks, not even necessarily with a dwarfism diagnosis, but that maternal fetal specialists, like are kind of like cut to the point, like the bedside manner, because it is so emotional and it's so common for them.
Mm-hmm.
There were a couple docs that we preferred over the one who initially gave us the diagnosis. Mm-hmm. There was a little bit of
there's a lot of uncertainty.
There was, and they kind of gave us a few options right out of the gate, but also there was a kind of a smidge, and I had not remembered this until recently, of guilt because I opted to continue to take my antidepressant through my first trimester. And he noted that, like, in reviewing the chart. So there was also a little bit of like, well,
yeah,
like that, what?
Yeah.
Like, let's not look for, like there's any blame here. Like, is that even a thing? Like, that's not even a thing. So that's kind of,
yeah. And they originally gave a diagnosis because we saw that doctor, and then the next week we saw another doctor in the same, in the same practice, and he said, "Well, I think your baby's got OI, brittle bones disease." And not knowing what that was, he explained it, and that just sounded horrible, So that added another layer of emotion to the diagnosis that we had already gotten. So then we got connected with I don't even know what the woman's title was, genetic counselor or something like that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And she part-time at that place, part-time at Children's Hospital. So she connected us with the geneticist at Children's Hospital. And they had done an amniocentesis at the first visit. So we got all that tested, and they thought dystrophic dysplasia, and were able to do a DNA test for that to determine exactly what it was.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it gave us some ease, but it still left a lot of uncertainty as to what was going to happen after birth.
Yeah, we I mean, again, being sort of the detail to-do list kind of gal, I was adamant, like, we want to know, like, what do we need to do to find out? And I can remember a couple of days after we had the amniocentesis that day, calling, and the doc was like, we're not going to know. I can't tell you right now. First of all, like, there's a whole process involved, and there's 2,000 some things that we're like looking at being able to read for.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thankfully,
if we do that,
thankfully the doctors at Children's Hospital had a good idea based on the markers, the hitchhiker thumb and the club feet and stuff like that. So we were able to do a DNA test based on that, and it was right. Because otherwise,
the genetic testing they did was more narrow.
So many different tests, we could have spent thousands of dollars.
Right.
And in the moment, I was like, yes, like, let's do that. And, when I hear other people's stories, they're like, well, we just kind of, went with it. I'm like, no, like, I could never have done that. Like, that was like halfway. And at the time, and it wasn't, kind of in conversation later, realized how early that is to know something. And so that's the other thing. Like, I don't know how I would have just like lived with wondering. Of course, in hindsight, it's like, it's not a big deal at all. I mean, I think this book project for me, we tell, people ask and we talk about this, but as he gets older, we don't talk as much about it. And I think because we have had kind of a smooth road of a go of it with all of his, medical
it hasn't been smooth.
situation.
It hasn't been smooth, but it hasn't been as rough as others.
Yeah, that's all kind of in the rear view. And so being able to think about it again and, kind of work through this writing or, the story, and how does the story and what does it kind of, like tell us now, has been just really great. Like I think for us personally, I would say for me personally, to be able to, reflect on some of that he's, turning out to be the person he's meant to be. So.
Yeah. Has it been an emotional process?
I mean, I think so. I think trying to write this together, as you know, I'm like, so we're not really quite the way there. The timing of it seemed great. And now just life has been complicated. I mean, when is life not complicated, but it's been a little challenging to work through that. And this is actually kind of good, sitting down and like talking it through, and it being, we're still saying the same things about it. I think so, but I mean, that emotional part, like that's, kind of always been there. I think reliving that a little bit has been, not the best part, but also kind of the best part. Cause at that, we didn't know what we didn't know. And we thought how hard it was going to be. And this is going to be so challenging, and, like, why us, and what did we do to deserve this, and all of that, like, negative stuff that spun up. And it's, we're not on the other side of it. We won't, ever end up on the other side of it. This is just what it is. But I think that, kind of ability to look back and grieve a little bit of the unmet expectation in that moment, it just felt so terrible. And now it's not terrible at all. Is really kind of cool in a way. Emotional, yes, but cool.
I mean, I haven't really been emotional over the process, like his journey of, medical visits and procedures and all that kind of stuff, and wondering, is he going to walk? Because I figure, all this stuff is going to happen in his own schedule.
Yeah.
What I get emotional about is just seeing him grow up and figure out new things. And like he played soccer in the fall and in the spring, and he scored a goal. For me, that was emotional. That kind of stuff that he goes through, that, because I know that kind of stuff is going to come harder for him. And other kids, it's so much easier to do the physical stuff, but he gets out there and does it and gives it his all. And,
I love the contrast, just the point of view from mom and dad. Like that's awesome.
Yeah. And I think some of, we kind of had a mentality, or again, me being the like type A, get it all done. What do we need to do next? Trying to conquer it all. We wanted to get him out of the NICU and get to all the specialists and figure out what were all the other things that were going to be like wrong. And after the first 6 months, we kind of got he's fine. Like everything's fine. He is just who he is. And so we kind of, went on our way, and then people asked like, oh, well, how often do you go back for, appointments? And I was like, we haven't seen the ENT in about a year. Like, I don't know, probably should check in with them. It's just that idea that you have to get it all done, and it has, like, what are we missing? Are we doing all the right things for him? And maybe we're not. And we still think that, I think sometimes, but now seeing him as a 5-year-old, as a little person, and, when he was a baby and he was a toddler, and we just did things the way he needed them to be done. And the comparison, I compared. I mean, I would always like look at the average height kids and be like, man, they look like spiders with these long arms and legs. And he's just this great little package, like he's his perfectly. And I think even now too, now he's 5, and it's clear he's not average 5-year-old. And so now some of the things that we worried about being, challenging, where when he was, the baby comparison was a little bit more similar to other kids.
Mm-hmm.
The milestones, you know, like when are we doing things,
Mm-hmm.
you know, everybody, you know, develops at that point, you know, in their own way. And that's been an easy thing to accept because, you know, we have lots of families of average height whose kids have all kinds of other problems, you know, didn't speak when they, you know, early enough, and, you know, had other orthopedic, I mean, just everybody's got something, I guess is maybe the saying, like what normal is not really a word that means anything. There is no such thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, now, like Chris said, it gets more emotional seeing him be a person, you know, who is clearly different and apart. I should not apart, but different and distinct. And people's response to that, in that they just roll with it because of who he is, you know, his personality shines through and the effort that he gives. And, you know, he's swimming now. This is the first summer he's really been into swimming. And, you know, that's my profession. So, you know, people have always asked, you know, how is he doing with that? And we just kind of have done it. Like we would do it with anybody else. And for, you know, any other, you know, if we had an average height child, but to see him start to take off and be able to do things. Cause for a while I thought, like, well, how will he do it? Like, I don't even know how to accommodate it for him. And see him try at soccer and like, not love it, not fail, but clearly soccer with average height kids is not going to be something that he ever enjoys. Like, why would he?
Right.
But we were, you know, proud of him being able to not absorb that. You know,
we were proud of him for giving it a shot. And not just giving up on it.
Absolutely. I've heard
now he wants to tackle T-ball.
Now, yes, he's moved on.
T-ball is cute, like no matter what. So that's
right.
I've heard from many average height parents whose only child is a little person, how they see their child as like the normal one. And so when they see these other, you know, like you said, like they're gangly and they're like, they're the weird looking ones. And I'm so tickled by that, you know, and to hear more than one parent say it, I think is fantastic.
Yeah. Well, and I think, oh shoot, I just lost my what I was gonna say. I'm sorry.
No.
It'll come back.
Now he's trying to be Mr. Independent. He wants to be able to do everything for himself. And he's, you know, for a long time he wasn't able to do a lot of things for himself, you know, get dressed and stuff. But now he still sometimes needs some help.
Sure.
But he's getting there. And
how aware is he of his differences? How aware is he?
He's aware now.
Yeah.
Probably in the last year or so.
Yeah. When we really started to lean into potty training and not like at 2 and 3 when all the kids were doing it and everybody needs help getting pants up and pants down and getting on the potty. But I think probably 3, like into like before COVID, that fall into the spring, because most of the kids had mastered that and he was still struggling because of the dress, like the clothing issue.
That was the issue, because he couldn't undress himself. He couldn't get his clothes back on. So he tended to have more accidents because of that.
Yeah. And need more support in the classroom. So he's in a daycare that's a school setting. It's like a Montessori school. It's not exactly. And so he would say things like, I wish my arms were longer. He had said that a couple of times. And, you know, we would just say, this is the way you are. This is how God made you. And you're very, very special. And that's kind of always been, you know, we've never been like, oh, we can't do that, because I mean, we've just jumped in and probably jumped in too much if with an average height kid in ways we might not have, but he's definitely pushed his back now but also like rides that line between wanting it and knowing he can get it if he needs the help. So you know, he'll say, Mom, you know, my arms are short. Oh, I forgot. But he, you know, we can see too, where as time goes on, we're going to have to understand with him what's too much and what's like what he can do. You know, he says, I need to be carried, or why don't we bring the stroller? I can't stop, you know, I need to stop. And I think there's some valid, probably physical, you know, concerns as far as stamina. But at the same time, he's so cute and he gets what he wants. Yeah. And we have to go kind of level that. So we've been talking a lot about kindergarten and what do kindergartners do? And what does that mean to go to school? He's going to stay at the school he's at for there. They have a private kindergarten classroom that we opted for with COVID and not knowing how things were going to change here. But we're going to treat that as kind of a new jumping off point for him in terms of, you know, stepping it up a little bit. He's not, yes, people are going to look at you and ask if you're a baby and, you know, question that. And he gets that. And he just says, no, I'm not a baby. I'm 5 years old. Like it's, you know, he's very at face value comfortable with it. You know, he's 5. So we don't have a lot of conversation about that. But I don't feel like we've let there be things he can't do or that he's missed out on because of it. And some of that's because of his overall good health. But that's also been our approach. And I think when we understood that more about it, you know, about little people in general, that was, we just adopted that mentality and went with it.
Yeah.
He's going to have challenges with people, you know, because kids are cruel, adults are cruel, and he's going to run into people that are going to be mean to him and stuff like that. So far, we haven't had that, I don't think. We take him to the playground in our neighborhood, and the kids say, you know, call him baby because they think he looks like an overgrown baby. And I just say, no, he's not. He's just very small for, you know, his age. He's 5. Yeah. You know, and then they tend to understand.
Yeah. That's good.
Kids are pretty accepting, which I think is just amazing. And it's really helped, I think, just from kid to adult versus adults having to explain down. You know, the school community, you know, he's been there since he's 18 months old. So I think part of our decision to keep him there is we're not quite ready to let that go because he's such a, you know, key integrated in there. But, you know, I think the one thing that has been instrumental for us as he's grown is getting to build relationships with adult LPs, which we had no idea, like the value of that in the beginning. We only sought out parents who had other little ones of the, you know, to know what to do and what are you doing and what happened for you and how did that work? And, you know, I sometimes think like, what might we have gained knowledge wise had we known that earlier and had known, you know, folks like you. And we have a good group of folks here in the DC area that we've, you know, with the local LP chapter, but also just people we've gotten to know personally. And not as a way of thinking like, these are your people, but being able for us to understand and for him, you know, for him to see, you know, one of our, you know, friends that we've gotten to know came to a couple of his soccer games and just like loved that. And we loved him being able to share, you know, kind of share that. And it was really cool to see some of our, you know, our other families and their kids, you know, just acknowledge that. Cause that was really the soccer situation was the first time we had felt like there were questions to answer and times where we needed to jump in and explain. And so, just getting to know more people. I mean, like I'm a people person, my husband, despite Chris would say he's not, but he really is. You know, for us, that's it. Again, it's another community of just folks that we've gotten to know that we would have had the opportunity. So again, it's been a huge blessing.
Yeah. How did you guys get involved in LPA? You know, I'm new to LPA, and
I didn't realize that with all of your like vast connections.
So I mean, I'm second generation, so we didn't really like have an overarching need for it, and I knew it existed, but I didn't really know like the value of it. And then I kind of discovered like how big the world of LPA is in 2018. And so then I got involved in 2019, and then we started a chapter here in Mississippi, and I'm the president. And so now I see, like, I've been to several regionals, and my girls have gone, and they've gotten to see other kids that look like them, and I've been able to really see the value of it. But how did you guys first get involved with LPA?
Man,
She signed us up.
I was gonna say, didn't we just go on the website?
How did you hear about it though? Like, how did you?
So I do know how we heard about it. The 2 weeks appointment after our initial diagnosis, we went off to Children's to have like a day long. I think you were talking about it when I stepped out. The extra ultrasound, like the extra long ultrasound. We met with the orthopedic head of the orthopedic department at Children's, who has had a lot, I don't know what it was, has several patients, with dwarfism over the years. And so knowing that they had really narrowed it down to dystrophic, they wanted us to go meet with her because, the club feet was at that point the thing they knew that would be the most impactful, for quality of life. Not knowing whether there'd be cleft palate or any of those other things.
Well, that was the one thing that they could start treating right away.
Like we had a plan. There was a plan for. And so we talked with Dr. Tosi, and she gave us old copies of the magazine she had on hand.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, remember? Yeah. And so I think I flipped through, probably went to the website, and I don't know that we registered, because I think I registered him when he was born, but that kind of opened the door. And then we found Vita, really, and her website. So one of the moms, whose son is now in his 40s or so, our age really, of dystrophic, has this whole online library of, it's almost like a booklet. And she tells all these new parents, print it out, take it with you to the hospital, give it to the neonatologist, let them read it. I'm like, and we did, we had it with us, and we referenced it, and they were like, who wrote that? And so, in advocating for him early on, we were like, okay, we're going to have to be more knowledgeable. And this is a perfect example, right? It's not a medical journal, but yeah, I think that was really, and then there's resources in there from other LPs. So that was, I think that Dr. Tosi is the one that turned us onto it. As again, type A and research need to know, as I am, I imagine we would have stumbled on it, but
well, I had heard of, watch a little bit.
Well, yeah, that's true.
They've had episodes in the beginning about, going to the LPA conference and doing the
sports league, and yeah. I think too, without technology, social media, and the internet, we would have been, I don't know, I can't even fathom parents.
Yeah, we would have been lost,
I know you said you're second generation, but from our, one removed, how families, not how they manage. I know how they manage. They just did it. They just do it. You just do what you got to do. But
we wouldn't have had the same information that we have now.
Yeah. And the same.
Been able to better prepare as much as we possibly could.
Yeah.
Right.
So, for what it's worth, social media has its evils, I guess. There's an upside to it as well.
There's a lot of good to it, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. I think so. I had some fertility issues at the beginning of my marriage, and we did IUI and such. And so I imagine that probably played a little bit of a role in, how you felt about everything. And, you keep referencing to being type A, which you are, and I am too. But, I think that just really wanting to be assured that things are going to be okay, because it did take you so long to get there, probably played a role as well.
Yeah, I think I have, like I said, started to, as reflecting on some of this, connect those dots. Because that was, we had, as comes a point where a jumping off point, you have to make the decision. You don't just, hey, maybe let's try and get pregnant. It's either we're going to or we're not, and this is the day and the hour it's going to happen if we're going to do it, you know? And so, yeah, there is something to be said for that. I don't know that I had really connected those dots, but for sure that, you know, making sure that it all goes to plan, I guess, you know, knowing that part A of the story did not. So maybe that better prepares you to have some, you know, a separate different outcome than you anticipated. But I mean, anytime I'm thinking anything through on that, from that standpoint, I just have to stop and say, like, gosh, we are so lucky. Like, thank you, God, for not blessing us with an appetite. You know, what would he be like? You know, I think kids
I don't know if I'd go that far though. I'd say, like, thank you for blessing us with, you know, a healthy child. And somebody with, like, such a bold personality. I mean, I often ask myself if I could go back and do this all over again and change it so that he was average height. Would I? And no, I wouldn't, because I love who he is and the person he's becoming. And every day he's figuring things out, and you know, it's awesome to see that.
Well, I think that's what I was getting. I wouldn't trade the two, like having, could we go back and like fix it or, you know, that's that sort of, we've gotten over the expectation being different and it's not, you know, and people, you know, moms talk about their pregnancy and all this. And I like, no, I had none of that. Cause I was like miserable the second half because I just, you
didn't know.
Just there was so much that overtook what was happening that would have gone differently. But I just think kids are so good at becoming who we, I guess, kind of tell them to be. And, you know, every day you wonder, like, are you doing the right thing? Are we messing up our kids? You know, like, are we messing up our kids? And, you know, that's really good way to see that with him, we're doing a good job with all of the things we've navigated, because he is who we would want him to be. So
I love that. I one of the moms in a different interview said, you know, people ask me if I would change it if I could, and I tell them that I don't want to change her for the world. I want the world to change for her. For the most part, typically our concerns with our children with dwarfism or other disabilities, it's not really within them. Like, it's not that we're concerned about them and their disability. We're concerned about like how they're going to be able to get through things socially because of how the world is. So I thought that was a really neat response that she had.
That's good. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I like that, responding to the world coming at us, not how we send them out into the world. Yeah.
So is there anything that you would like, you know, the audience, the world to know about dwarfism? Like, is there a fact or just, you know, something that if there's a struggle or what have you that you would like to share with the world?
I think we've had some people approach us about, I think you had somebody that approached you about somebody was pregnant with a kid with dwarfism and what to expect. But, you know, it's kind of hard to know what to expect. I mean, if you're going to have a kid with dwarfism, you kind of have to, one, do some research, but you know, you kind of have to take things as they come too. You can't just prepare and then ahead of time and everything is going to be great, you know. Sometimes you have to go with the punches and figure it out as you go.
Yeah, to be adaptable. I mean, just even in the idea that you're going to have to be creative in accommodations of, you know, physical, you know, needs and equipment, but just being adaptable. And, you know, I think for me, that's probably helped me developed that side of my personality in all kinds of areas, like at work, even too. I can tell you since having Jackson, like I'm much more like, let it roll off my back. Just like, let's be flexible. You know, whereas, you know, 6 years ago, I'd have been all bent out of shape about why it didn't go that way and what went wrong and why we, you know, how should we fix that for next time and why this was bad and this was good, right? Very black and white on that kind of front. But yeah, I think that's probably the one thing to know is just, and I'm sure it can apply to any parent, but I think particularly to what you said, you know, people asking us what they need to know, and not knowing that you're not going to be able to do it all and fix it all and make it all right for your kid, that they've got to have to, some of that is going to it's going to not be okay. And they're going to have to figure it out, you know, in their own way, in their own time. Whether that's how soon they're going to walk, which is easy to say, you know, to know, or people ask, how tall is he going to be? Like, I don't know. Did your mom know how tall you were going to be?
People ask that all the time, and there's no way to know.
Yeah. You know, but, you know, more concrete things about, you know, how are they going to deal? You know, I think on, you know, social media, parents will post things and say like, well, how do we deal with the bullying, or so-and-so, you know, and it's, you know, you've got to give them some guidance, but you got to try, you know, go with your gut, and you can't mess them up, I guess. You can't do the wrong thing.
Yeah.
By them.
Or we will, like, we'll make mistakes, but no more than, you know, a average child.
Right.
Would, you know, so yeah, I love that. Awesome. Well, thank you both so much for being part of the book.
Sure. Thanks for
having us.
Yeah, we're very grateful and excited about it, and we'll get it close it out for you here in the next couple of days. But yeah, we really appreciate the opportunity to share. Like I said, we just felt really blessed and lucky to have encountered the right people at the right time and the right resources to help us.
I think that was the key for us, is the right people at the right time.
Yeah.
You know, the right doctors, the right support people. You know, the woman at the clinic we went to, and they told us about the possibly OI, putting us in touch with the geneticist at Children's. I mean, that was a blessing.
Yeah, she had connections there, which made, you know, smooth that, like, who knows how long we might have had to work that out if we hadn't, you know, met.
I mean, and that was just the start of it. Then we got connected with doctors at Newmore's, and that's been, you know, incredible.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Allison, you've been such a great friend to me, and I'm so grateful.
Oh, well, thank you. Same, sister.
Yeah. Well, thank y'all for being here. I appreciate you letting me interview you. I know that it was not on the top of your list of things to do today, but this was really great, good information. And thank everybody else for listening. And our book comes out in September. The parents' book comes out in September. It is A Little Perspective, Special Delivery from Pregnancy to Toddlerhood. So reach out to Allison and Chris and get your own autographed copy. And then October is Dwarfism Awareness Month, and, you know, we will be doing some advocacy stuff then. So thank y'all again, and everybody have a great night.
Thanks, Angela.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.